What's interesting is that one of your superpowers as a podcaster is that you have a plan, but you don't always stick rigidly to your plan. You go wherever the guest takes you. You go where Simon Sinek takes you, right? I've taken you down this long path about living in a shed that I'm sure was not on your agenda. And I'm sure lost a good half of the people that we were talking to early on. But my point with all of that is just to say, you practice what is called courage. And courage is a word that is definable. And people don't often take the time to really define what courage is. Courage is doing the thing that you're afraid of. That is courage. So going off script and asking a question, coming in unprepared for a podcast, those are things that cause you a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety. You're like, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but you do it anyways. One of the major differences between entrepreneurs and aspirational entrepreneurs is that entrepreneurs have the courage to try, and aspirational entrepreneurs are always talking about the day that they will have the courage to try.
Trust comes into this, right? Because part of the reason that I can sit down with someone for 3 hours, not necessarily I've never had a question written down, but not even have an idea of where the conversation is going to go, is because I have so many case studies that it's been fine in the past. And it's those case studies that have built up this sort of self-trust that enables me to sit down and go, how are you? And then they go off about loneliness, and we spend 3 hours talking about loneliness. But that comes from that initial trust, I think.
I think trust is a good word. Trust is
self-trust. I'm trying to,
Yeah, self-trust or confidence.
Yeah.
Those are good words to use, but I would almost challenge that what you're really talking about is you're gambling on odds that you've learned are in your favor, right? It's kind of like when you think about a professional athlete. Professional athletes do some amazing movements. Sometimes they make the score and sometimes they don't. But what happens is when they make the score doing an amazing movement, that's what we all remember. When they miss the shot doing the amazing movement, nobody remembers that. Right? Nobody remembers how many basketball shots Dennis Rodman didn't make, right? They just remember something else about Dennis Rodman. Arnold Schwarzenegger has this famous quote where he made lots of movies. We all remember our favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. But how many of his bad movies do you remember? Not many. And he knows that too. And that's one of the reasons that he said yes to so many movies, was because he learned early on in his bodybuilding career that nobody remembers when you lose, but they always remember when you win. So he had no problem making a bunch of movies because the 1 or 2 or 3 or 12 or 18 that became blockbusters were the ones that defined him, even though he also did Kindergarten Cop.
I mean, that's quite a good concept to hold in your mind if you're trying to weigh up any sort of risk in your life, like the risk of leaving the shed that we were talking about.
Correct. You're taking a chance, you're taking a gamble. But here's the thing. We're conditioned in our shed, we're conditioned to gamble on the system, right? If you're going to roll the dice, at least roll the dice that the system gives you, right? Bet on the house because the house is going to win. What we really learn as entrepreneurs is to gamble on ourselves. Like, bet on you. How many people take every dollar they earn and they invest it in a brokerage that's managed by somebody else that is targeting an 8% return on investment? That's what they do with every dollar of their life. My mother-in-law just recently retired about 3.5 or 4 weeks ago. She is, what do you have to be to retire? 69, I think. So she's 67 or 68 years old. She's worked her entire life. Her primary investment vehicles, I shit you not, are CDs. It's a device in the investment world where you basically put your money in for a certain amount of time and it guarantees you a certain yield. And that yield is usually very, very low. But that was her preferred investment vehicle. So for the 69 years or the 50 years that she's been working, she's been investing in these low performance certificates of deposit, CD. That is exactly the kind of thinking that was conditioned into her by the generation before her. That's where she learned about CDs at all. That's why she bought her first CD at 16 years old, was because mom and dad told her to do that. So here it is, 2024, she's retiring, and all of the money that she saved is basically in these certificates of deposit, which is not a lot of money.
Really?
Yes, because it doesn't grow. Whereas I invest in my company, and my return has been 300%. And entrepreneurs, even entrepreneurs who don't grow quickly, still see 12% return on investment, 15% return on investment, 20% return on investment, which outperforms anything in the market. But you still have these people who don't want to gamble on themselves because they're afraid that the house will win.
So fresh on me. Freedom!